Hi everyone, I'm Jessica James and this is the Millcreek Government Channel. We have a wonderful show prepared for you today, and joining me today is President and CEO of the Asbury Woods Partnership, Larry Barron, and I'm so glad he is here to talk with us today. We have so many interesting things going on with the Maple Festival and going on with Asbury Woods. I'd like to turn it over to Larry Barron, and you know, I just wanted to mention that Asbury Woods Nature Center is such an asset to the community and has provided our residents and visitors with so many great programs and events. I know in particular, I think a lot of our residents have visited the center, actually going to school in Millcreek Township and taking field trips out there. But maybe you can kind of go over the history for everyone who maybe has forgotten since their middle school years, or maybe never knew the history. But if you don't mind going into a little bit of detail about the land and maybe how it was acquired.
Sure. Well, it all started in 1957. Dr. Otto Barron, this was his summer cottage, his little retreat in the summertime. He worked for the Hammer Mill Paper Company, and he donated the land upon his death to the school district, Millcreek Township School District. So people may not realize it's actually the school district that owns the property. It was an asset passed on to the school district, and I think the vision was that school children would use it. And Dr. Otto Barron was very interested in science, in studying how tree species survive in this region. So in about 11 years after the donation, science teachers started to bring students out. And at that time, and keep in mind this is a few years before the first Earth Day, 1968, we have science teachers going out in the woods, taking their students out into the woods, learning from the woods about the natural world. What a better classroom than that. So it's pretty amazing to me to think that that far back they had that vision, and that carried over, and for decades children in Millcreek from kindergarten to 12th and still today use this as their science classroom. It's an amazing thing, and in addition the community gets to benefit. You have over 200 acres, you have 4.5 miles of trails, so we'll talk a little more about Maple Festival, but there are events, there are ways that people engage with this community asset. They can actually use it as a park, and they have for decades. So it's really a wonderful story, and thank you for asking it.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, and you know, and it's been a very long time. Like I said, I grew up in the Millcreek School District, and it's been a long time since I've actually, you know, heard the history, you know, like you said, behind Otto Barron, and maybe even a little bit before when it came to the Native Americans. But there's so much to it, and I love history, so I love, you know, hearing it again and reminding myself of what's there. So that's wonderful. And can you provide a little bit more of a backstory on maybe the current operations of the facility and how you guys manage the park?
I'm always amazed at how people just enjoy it, and there's, you know, some people say, does the state run this? Is it a community park? Is it a county park? It really doesn't matter from the visitor's standpoint, but behind the scenes, it's a partnership. And I work for the Asbury Woods Partnership, which is the nonprofit arm. But it's still owned and operated by the school district. We have an operations agreement. So if you were to come to the back office of Asbury Woods Nature Center, you'd see side by side, I'm working with school district employees. I have my own employees who are helping to run festivals like we're going to talk about Maple Fest. But really it is a partnership, and it's that cooperative agreement that has helped us manage the facilities. Now things are changing. The school district has always seen this as a great asset. They've just recently did a teacher survey, which was far and above, exceeded expectations, how much teachers from kindergarten up till 12th really enjoy this center and using the land for programs and classes, what we call eSTEM, which we could talk more about. But behind the scenes, it's really the partnership of these two, the school district and this nonprofit arm, that really got started because I didn't really talk about in the history that the cottage has evolved into this almost 10,000 square foot facility. We've added more land to the place, so now it's 205 acres. As I mentioned, the trails, we actually created in our last campaign in 2005 a bridge to connect Brown's Farm property to Asbury Woods. So now when you go, even in the wintertime, you could hike or snowshoe or ski from the nature center all the way to Brown's Farm on Sterretania Road. So it's if you look at it from the map standpoint, it's a large piece of property. Some people may only walk their dog in a certain part or know their little section where the grandmother tree is or the grandfather tree, but it's actually a pretty extensive piece of property.
And that's funny that you mentioned that. I do take my dog walking through Asbury Woods, and I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the dogs are allowed on the western side of the property, like you said, kind of going back behind the Asbury barn and back through Sterretania to the bridge area. And you know, of course, we always want people to pick up after your pet and keep your dogs leashed, but I do. That's where I walk, and you know, I guess I never realized that it connected. So that was an amazing discovery I made all by myself one day. But I do. I think that's wonderful. You guys have expanded, and I did not realize it was over 200 acres. That's very impressive.
Yeah. And I don't know if a lot of people do, because, you know, it's not like Presque Isle. You know, when you enter Presque Isle, you're in the state park, you can enjoy the whole property. I think people sometimes enter in different ways. They might park and walk their dog on a little trail and say, can I keep going? Yes, you can keep going. You could go all the way to Brown's Farm. But they may not realize, am I walking in a private property? So I think we have a challenge ahead of us, is to bring more attention to Asbury Woods, and also where it begins, where it ends, entrance signs, so you know when you on 38th and Asbury, you're about to enter Asbury Woods. When you're driving on Sterretania, you're about to enter Asbury Woods on the other end. So there's still some awareness, and you brought that up, and that's something we're hearing.
That's perfect. And I know we kind of touched on it actually before we started the show. You and I were talking, but maybe you could explain. And again, I just didn't know the difference. I've lived here my whole life, but what the difference maybe is between the Asbury Woods Partnership and the Asbury Woods Nature Center. I didn't know, you know, which one specifically to call your organization, but you told me it was both. So maybe if you want to go into that for us a little bit.
Well, I think we'll give people a sense of place. Where are we? We are at the Asbury Woods Nature Center. When we want to know about how it operates, then we get a little deeper in the details. As I mentioned, we expanded the building and turned a little cottage that Otto Barron had donated into a world-class facility with live animal zoo quality exhibits and classrooms. And all that was because we started a friends group long ago in 2000, 15 years ago. Friends of Asbury Woods started, and that evolved into the partnership today. So this small community of people who got together, volunteers, and said, no, we got to keep running programs. The school district may not have the time, but we embrace this place. This is ours. So we want it to be all it can be. So obviously fundraising is part of that, you know, and we still do that today. When there's needs, when the community says we want a bigger building, or we're outgrowing this part. There's over 7,000 students in Millcreek, and every single one of them comes to Asbury Woods. So that small cottage, I've seen photos. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how they pulled it off, but you know, all the animals and all the programming done in a small little cottage that is now just part of a much larger nature center. So it's really grown, and I think the reason for that is because we have this partnership, because we have a great school district behind it, and also a great nonprofit of community people who just want to see it grow and want to see it all it can be, which sometimes the school district has other issues to deal with. They're running a nature center and 2,000 acres of land, but the partnership, actually, this is all we do. We are the people with the passion, so it's why it's grown to the point it is, and it's going to continue to grow.
Sure, and you mentioned that it started out as a small group, like you said, Friends of Asbury Woods. Can you tell me the partnership now, how many employees do you guys have? What is your staff like?
Well, we've grown. We have a mix of full-time and part-time. We have up to 11 staff now. And that's going to grow as well, because we are going to be purchasing the property from the school district, so we are expanding. Our staff will need people, obviously, managing facilities and land. But the school district has always had staff there, and they've actually shrunk as we've grown. And so it's kind of a beautiful situation where we just know what we need capacity-wise to run the place, and who puts in more into the pot has changed and has evolved to where it is today. So I think as you see it grow, you'll see the partnership grow more, because it eventually will be our property and our building, and so we'll need to take on, with ownership comes greater responsibilities. Right,
and and I know, again, we were talking earlier, but I think the community loves this park so much, whether it is the school district running it or Asbury Woods Partnership taking over, we just know the community doesn't want to see it go anywhere, so we know that it's not.
That's the bottom line, is things won't change. People still enjoy events like Maple Festival. So those are the things that, again, it's behind the scenes. How does it operate? It doesn't really matter as long as people are enjoying themselves and being able to enjoy the trails, and it's always been free, and it always will be free to the public.
And it's a seamless transition so far. I mean, the public is not going to see any changes or differences, from the school district owning it to the partnership owning it. It's just going to be accessible to everyone.
I hope if anything, we see improvements. The things what we've talked about. I mean, the school district has a lot on their plate. So maintaining trails or signage or promoting Asbury Woods may not necessarily be on the top of their list. It is for us, because we want communities to support it and recognize. And we're hearing from the community that the community actually wants it to be more well-known, sort of on line with Presque Isle. We have these few green spaces left in Erie County. Let's protect them, let's promote them, let's even promote them outside of Erie County. Let's bring people to Erie. For instance, I'm a bird watcher, so first and foremost. But I used to lead bird watching trips all over the world. There's over 100 species of birds nesting in Asbury Woods. I mean, I could see a day when bird watchers who come to Presque Isle, because it's so well known, maybe they stay for a few days and also visit Asbury Woods. So I think people want to see us promote it more. It's not just Millcreek's best kept secret anymore.
Right. Oh, I know. I mean, it is our best kept secret, but I guess we have to start to share it. Yes. But I do want to mention, you seem so knowledgeable about Asbury Woods Partnership and the area and our history, but you're actually quite new to the area yourself. So can you tell us where you were before you started at Asbury Woods?
Sure. Yeah, I fooled you. Good.
You did. You fooled all of us, I'm sure.
I've only been here a year. I have to admit, couldn't find Erie on the map a year ago. But there was a national search done to find a new president and CEO. And the idea was, can we bring somebody who understands this world that we're in, this nature center world, and that's what I've been doing for 25 years. More than half my life I've been spending all the way from Maine all the way to Oregon. I've been working at nature centers, working for the National Park Service. I started the first children's forest in Oregon. This is a 1.2 million acre Asbury Woods, if you could put it that way. 30 classrooms. We got the highest federal money to start that program, and now 30,000 students in Oregon have a beautiful 1.2 million acre classroom to use. My last job I ran the Tillamook Forest Center in Oregon, working for the state. So I think Asbury Woods is my 14th center. I was trying to figure it out the other day. So I've been doing these kind of programming for, like I said, 25 years, and funding and fueling these things. How do you bring grant money? How do you bring public support, and how do you fundraise for these programs? That's really what I've been the last 10 years or so focusing a lot of my energy on. So what we do at Asbury Woods, I would say, to some degree is not unique. There are other nature centers across the country. I've seen them. But I've never seen a program as integrated as this with a school district. It is really outstanding, and I can't even think of a program that I've seen from Maine to Oregon that's even close to it. That's
absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure our viewers are thrilled to hear that. Like I said, a lot of Millcreek students have come through the program, and a lot of the science teachers I know are gearing up for it every year, and it's exciting to be able to take students out of the classroom and, like you said, bird watching, or showing them the streams we're trying to teach them, to prevent pollution. And I think it's really wonderful to get them out of the classroom and into the nature setting. But you guys have an outside nature classroom right here, already developed, and the curriculum is wonderful. So I know that you have been basically from coast to coast, and now you're here in Millcreek. So it sounds like you have great background behind you, and I know we're excited to support you here at Asbury Woods. So you did talk a little bit about curriculum, and I want to get into that. The Asbury Woods right now is gearing up for the Maple Festival. And we were kind of talking, we've got a lot of neat items here on the table and what we like to call the tools of the trade. And I was just wondering if you could go over these with me and provide me with a little history lesson.
Sure, yeah, this is sort of a preview of what you'd see at Maple Festival, but you know, the event is really, I think in general it's giving kids of all ages a sense of place. You know, we're here, and you can see on the map, there's not too many places where maple sugaring occurs, just in the Great Lakes region. So when we look at maple sugaring, we look at the history of it. When you come for the Maple Festival, you actually get to walk through time, and you get to see how it's evolved. So in our region, the Great Lakes region, the temperatures are just right to allow for the sap to flow. And Native Americans, this is actually a birch bark basket that was used to collect sap. So that would be hanging from a tree along with a tool to siphon the sap into it. Basically what we call a spile. It's also called a tap or a spout. And this would go into the tree. Now here's a modern version of it, so you can compare the two.
Perfect. Like I said, it looks like we're performing surgery here. I don't know if I'm qualified for this.
Luckily, it doesn't hurt the tree.
Okay.
But yes, we do.
Oh, that's a good point to make.
So we basically use that tool to gather the sap, which just looks like water. I think kids are sometimes amazed when it first starts flowing out of the tree. They're thinking they're going to see something gooey because maple syrup is sticky, but actually it looks like water to them. And actually, with our taste buds today, with the amount of sugar we have in our bodies, this doesn't really taste much like anything but water. But to a Native American child, it might have tasted really sweet because they wouldn't have, you know, the kind of sugar we have these days in our foods.
That's amazing.
So Native Americans might have actually boiled it down to make maple sugar that we have in here. But of course, we use it today to make maple syrup. And so what we try to do at the Maple Festival is take you through the history from Native Americans to how early colonists use it to even today how we're doing it. And you actually get to go into our sugar shack. We actually take you through the process, so you get to see it from sap to syrup. Again, you go on the tour. You'll meet Native American, you'll meet early colonists, you'll meet people who have used maple syrup over time, and they show you the process from their point of view. But we also have music going, we have crafts. People can purchase different maple products we have. So it's really a festival honoring our area, our where we are in Erie. We're very lucky that only, you know, this part of the world we have the perfect combination of the right trees, the maple sugar maples, the right weather to create the temperature differences we need to have the sap flow, and only place on earth it happens. So I sometimes think about these kids growing up in Erie. Maybe they go off to live somewhere else, Washington, D.C. or California, and they can talk about, oh, there was this place, you know, back in my home, we made maple syrup, and that's something special that only is found here. And
that's what, when I was looking at the map earlier, I kind of see this highlighted portion around the Great Lakes region and in Canada, but you said this is actually the only place maple syrup is made in the whole world, right? And I don't know, I know many times Erie residents don't like to hear it, but our climate is actually good for this. So when I'm complaining about taking out my car, I can know that this is really benefiting the maple harvest.
Since I've been in Erie, I hear that we earn our summers here, and I would say also, because we are in Erie, we also have the ability to make maple syrup. So I love maple syrup, so it's exciting for me to be here. So this is an extension of our curriculum as well for the students, and this is our first grade curriculum where we talk about plants and animals. So the festival is what we do. We have a lot of festivals throughout the year, different festivals. This one is really educational for the public, even though people are having a good time. I hope they're learning also about not only the history, but the fact that, Erie is a special place, and this is unique.
Right, and I'm sure they're going to learn a lot. So tell us, when we go to the festival, because I'm going to make sure we go this year. When we go to the festival, can you tell me, is there a fee for it, and what can we expect when we go there? I mean, are people sitting down eating pancakes? I guess that's what I picture. Or, you know, like you said, they're going to the sugar shack. Well, you know, tell me, when you get there, what's, you know, what should families make sure they hit at the festival?
Well, definitely the pancake breakfast.
Okay.
We don't sell our own maple syrup. We produce it, and we might make up to 10 gallons of it, but it's all for the pancake breakfast. So part of the admission, members will pay $5, non-members will pay $7. Children 3 and under are free to come. But part of that is you get a pancake breakfast, so come with an empty stomach.
Okay.
It starts at 11 a.m., so maybe a late breakfast for some. And it ends at 4. So anytime you'll come, you can get your pancakes, you can get your syrup. It's on April 9th and 10th, so it's on a weekend. And the other thing is, at some point, you'll want to do the tour, and I urge people to give themselves enough time, maybe an hour, so that you can fit in a tour and get yourself on one of the tours. And the tours will take you on our boardwalk and through a loop where you'll go through time, and you'll meet a Native American and how they processed it. And a lot of times, you know, I talk about our programming as eSTEM, using the environment to teach science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, Maple's perfect because it teaches all of those things. And it also teaches people that technology does not mean iPads and cell phones. For a Native American, turning a stone into an arrowhead is technology. So when they meet the Native American going through how they made maple syrup, it was quite elaborate. They would take, obviously we wouldn't have wooden buckets or metal buckets, but what they would have is they'd have these wooden sticks actually pulling hot rocks out of the fire and into a basket filled with sap. And the more hot rocks you put in, you know, obviously over time you're going to evaporate the water. And they learn this technology through practice. And so that's how, after they gathered the sap, obviously they didn't have a evaporator pan and a sugar shack, but they had a fire. And usually it was the women and the children who would do this, while the males were out hunting. The children and the mom would be making maple sugar or maple syrup. So.
Oh my gosh, that is fascinating. I really think so. And what is this tool you have over here, or the last two tools? I don't want to forget anything.
So it's got, you know, I was trying to take you through some of the evolution of the spile, you know, to today.
Yes.
So you can see, you know, in colonial time, Native American to colonial, what they would make into a hollowed out piece of wood. And even more modern today is you'll see tubing throughout sugaring operations. We don't do it, but if you had, let's say, red maples, which are usually on a hillside or in a wet area, you don't want to have to gather from a bucket and drive around. So you'd have these tubes going to a central tank. So more of the modern operations will be using tubing. So if you ever go into the woods, what we call a sugar bush, a gathering of maple trees, and you see all these tubes going through like spider webs, that's basically gathering the sap using the natural pull of gravity to enter to a gathering tank, and that's where that farmer or that person producing maple syrup is gathering their sap.
And I really like the idea of just the maple syrup in general. You know, we were talking about how, you know, Native American children would have thought that the original sap here might have tasted more sugary than we do today. I know that, you know, we try to be very green and almost take a step backwards. You know, there's so much sugar added to everything. I know that I even try and put a few teaspoons in my coffee as a substitute for sugar or creamer or something else. But, you know, I do think that there are certainly health benefits to more naturalized sugars, and we have them here in our own backyard. That's so interesting. And can you talk a little bit too about how this ties in with that first grade curriculum?
Well, I mentioned I like to use the umbrella for all our programs as eSTEM again, environment, science, using the environment to teach science, technology, engineering, math. You had mentioned something about the sap and how much sugar is in there. Maple trees actually have a higher concentration of sugar, but still, even with that, there's a math lesson involved in that, where the first graders are learning how many gallons of sap they'd have to gather to make 1 gallon of syrup. And it's usually between 40 and 50 gallons. So then when you multiply that by 400 gallons, you know, how much did it take for us to make a gallon of syrup or even 10 gallons of syrup? So they know the work involved and how much it takes to get down to this level. So there's where the math comes in. And like I said, with the technology and engineering, from tubing to evaporator pads, the lesson is really more holistic than just science. And that's what I love about the outdoors, because really it's infinite, it seems. You can be teaching history, you can be teaching math, science, engineering, technology. And I think through this medium, they're actually learning that plants produce sugar, which is a basic thing that first graders learn, that plants create sugar through sunlight. So it's really perfect, isn't it?
It
it's
is,
a
and
sweet spot.
yeah, it is, and I just love the pure maple syrup. Like I said, I love to add it to my coffee, or, I'm willing to try anything new like that. If it sounds holistic, I'm always the first one, like, okay, where do I jump on board? Let's try this out. Unfortunately, I think we still have so much to talk about, but unfortunately, we are coming to the close of the show here. Are there any opportunities for people to volunteer or maybe make contributions? Like you said, funding is always hard for nonprofits, but if you can, get people behind the Maple Festival or behind the Asbury Woods Partnership, is there any way people can volunteer or, like I said, help out with funding?
Well, we've had a great history of people volunteering for us. So I always point people to the website, asburywoods.org. You can learn about volunteering. There's a donate button, of course. We even started a celebration garden where you can honor someone who's passed away or someone in the garden through a bench or creating a garden in their name. So there's a lot of ways. Start with the website, but also just come by and see us.
That's perfect. And what's your address, your telephone number? How can people contact you with questions, maybe about the Maple Festival or just Asbury Woods in general? Yeah,
again, I go to the website, but if you want to call us, 835-5356. We're on 4105 Asbury Woods, or Asbury Road in Erie. So we're very easy to find, and that's the best way. Just come by and see us, and we can chat.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Larry, for joining us. This has been such a wonderful and informative interview and show here. I really hope that our viewers come to the Maple Festival. I hope they check out your website, give you a call, and like I said, I love learning more about history and especially about the Erie area. So viewers, please get online, check out their website. Like he mentioned, it is in April, the Maple Festival. Please go. It's going to be a wonderful event, and you're going to get some pancakes and maple syrup out of it. So I think it's well worth your time. But again, thank you for tuning in to the Millcreek Government Channel, and have a wonderful day.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.